welcome back to the Build Your Empire podcast. And today we have Tyran Mowbray with us, who is a masculinity mentor. So we're going to be chatting to the fellas over the over the next couple of podcasts, which is exciting because bringing that other aspect is so incredibly important. And Tyran brings to the table, I guess the back end of the work that needs to be done in order for you to be able to show up in a way that's going to be able to A, help you in life, but B, potentially help you in business as well. So welcome, Tyran. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Melanie. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. So tell me a little bit about you. Tell me, if someone was to say, Tyran, give me a rundown of who you are, what would that look like?
Well, it depends who's asking. I could quite easily say I am the eternal spark of creation manifested in human form, if I was to talk from a spiritual sense. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I'm just a dude. I'm an Aussie dude. I grew up in Adelaide. I was a bricklayer. I played footy. I, took drugs, drank alcohol, partied, did all the things. Yeah. And, ultimately, I was pretty sad on the inside, and I didn't really know how to be happy. I thought I knew how to be happy, like drink and party and have friends and do all the things. But I wasn't actually really happy. I wasn't nourishing myself emotionally, physically, or spiritually. So, or mentally. So that led basically to a bit of depression, some failed relationships, more drugs, and eventually I cracked and was like, I don't like the man that I am. I don't like the man that I'm presenting to the world. Yeah. Actually, it's not that I don't like the man that I am. I love the man that I am, but I'm not actually expressing that to the world. Yeah. And so then I went on a experience. I quit everything. I went traveling for 13 months in Europe. I went on the whole, studied in Buddhist monasteries and did yoga and all the other things. But ultimately, the biggest crutch that I have in my life is sex and intimacy and relationships. That for me was the kind of thing that I never really fully got my head around. I can meditate, I could do yoga, I can do all these things, but my desire for intimacy, my desire for sex, my desire for sexual connection was still always the thing that really kind of I guess it was my weakness, my kryptonite, and so I went on a bit of a sexual journey. I kind of started exploring Tantra and the Kama Sutra, and then I merged sexuality with spirituality, and then I did some other retreats, and ultimately I just really went into all the shame, fear, and guilt that I have around my sexual expression, which also in my embodiment as a man. And what that means to be a sexual man or a sexual being. And I uncovered a lot of shit, and I realized that actually sexuality was kind of the foundation for everything else that presented itself in my life. Because guess what? It's what we all come from. It's how we're created.
That's right.
And so, that's kind of where I work in now. I work in men's sexuality, but that's the segue. And then usually there's a whole bunch of emotional stuff and mental stuff and that comes after.
So true. So tell me, I think there's a point in your life, and you've probably just brushed on it, where you get to, you've broken your own heart that many times that you've broken it open. Right. And that's usually that pivotal moment where, you make change, or you say, right, I'm going to commit to becoming a better person, leveling up, I guess you could call it. What was that moment for you? I know you said there was failed relationships and drugs and all those types of things, but what was the actual moment?
All right. It's actually a story that I don't tell in detail too often. Just because we normally guide over everything else. I was in Thailand. I knew I was depressed. I knew I was sad, and I committed to 3 weeks in Thailand on my own. Yeah. My friends were getting married, so I was going to go for the wedding for 2 days, and the rest of the time I was going to scuba dive and go do Muay Thai, kickboxing, and just clear all the shit out of my head. So I did that for the first week, and then I went to Koh Samui for the wedding, and I booked a hotel a long way away and it was like 3-4 days before the wedding, and I got the scooter and I went up to see everyone where they were, just so that I knew, and then I was going to go back and, and basically I never left. I stayed with them for the next 5 days, and we just got ridiculously fucked up. And then I canceled all my plans, and we went to the full moon party in Copenhagen, and then I went to another island with some other random people I met, and I got back to Koh Samui, and I had 3 days before I flew out. Everyone left, and we were on the beach, and the beach is full of people, and there's this young boy, this young Thai boy who, and we saw him a week and a half before, and I was a debaucherous mess, and he was being a smart ass, but I was being a smart ass, and he just obviously puts up with a lot of drunken Aussies, and so he just doesn't take any shit. And so I was kind of poking him, he was poking me, and I'm like, he must have been about 9, like he was young, and I said something and he went to hit me, and I could see it coming. And so like I leant back, and he hit a woman in the face next to me. And I laughed at him because I thought it was hilarious. Yeah. Ooh, sorry. And then when I had my last night, or second to last night in Koh Samui, everyone had left. I was on my own, and I was like, fuck, I'm just going to go to the beach, and I'm going to get drunk, and I'm going to meet a girl again, and just do the same thing I've done for the last 3 weeks. I got really drunk really quickly, and I started the voices in my head started, and I started to judge myself, and I started to hate myself, and I started to point out like everyone's staring at me, and you're weird, and you don't fit in, and like I've had them at times, but it was like it would have been 3 weeks of partying with barely any sleep, and it was like the greatest come down I'd ever had.
Amplified, right?
Yeah. And this boy was there again. Like he literally works on the beach at nighttime selling lays to people so that he can go home and fucking pay his grandma, buy food for his grandma and his little sister who he lives with. His parents are dead. And I found this out after, like I was in a bad space. I saw him, and I basically had no friends on the beach, and I was really depressed and drunk, and and we started chatting, and I started asking him about him, and he shared what I just shared with you, like he lives at home with his grandma and his younger sister, and he works on the beach selling these lays for like $1, so that he can buy some food for family, and it just it just broke me. My entire life, and especially the 3 weeks, and especially the experience with him 2 weeks before that, or a week and a half before that, just like I just realized how much of an asshole I had become, or how far away from my authentic expression as an actual very kind and compassionate man I had got to. Like I had got to such a far away place from what was real, that I was just being a dick to a fucking 8-year-old who has a life so much fucking harder than mine. And it broke me. Like it broke, like you say, it broke my heart so much that I could never put the pieces back together the way they were. And like fuck, we went to the shops, and I gave him money to buy food, and all he did was buy rice. I was like, no, like buy, but what do you want? Buy you. And he's like, no, I just want this for my family. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay, we'll buy this for your family. Now let's buy something for you. Yeah. Then he bought this yogurt for his grandma because it was her favorite, and this. And I was just like, okay, fine. We've spent the money that I gave you on your family. Now I want you to buy something. And he was it just changed everything. And I came back from that trip. I quit my job in the mines. I, worked for 5 months at home, and then I bought a one-way ticket to Europe. And I just at that single moment, if there was one, that single moment was the moment that just nothing would ever be the same again.
Wow, that's incredible. The way the messages are sent. Someone once said to me that you don't get to choose how the message looks. You just get to receive it, no matter what that looks. And it might look like domestic violence. It might look like an 8-year-old on the beach. It might look like a broken heart. Like, we don't get to choose what that bit is, but you will continue to receive the same the same messages until you get it. You know, I liken it to the feather, the brick, and the truck. You heard of that one? So you with the feather.
That was what I was going to say. Like if you're paying enough attention, you'll see the message way earlier in life, but they will keep getting more intense if you're not paying attention.
100%. So, okay, you've had this life-changing moment, like you said, where your heart it's broken open. We can't put the pieces back together again. So what were some of the tools that you learned in order to, I guess, regulate yourself would be one of the words, but, you know, align with your true purpose and passion? What were some of the tools that you learned moving forward from there?
Yeah, well, look, that was a whole journey unto itself, you know. That was definitely, you know, I mean, the first thing that I learned was yoga. Yoga and meditation was I had no idea what to do. I just knew that yoga and meditation existed, and apparently it brought peace to people. So like I watched YouTube and I meditated, and I watched YouTube and I did yoga. That was the first thing. And then I went down the path, you know, and then I went traveling. And when I came back, I got into yoga. I became a yoga teacher. I went to India and I studied, and I really immersed myself in that for a while. And it was great. You know, it was the first step for me as a man to actually get into my body and get into my emotions, because I was in my body because I used to go to the gym and I used to train really hard and I'd play sport and, you know, whatever else, but I wasn't actually in my body. I was in my head thinking I was in my body.
Operating
so yeah,
that masculine, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah. And to be honest, yoga was pretty masculine for me too. You know, it was like I was still in that hyper masculine drive, do the handstands, do the one-arm balances, do this, push. So I was still in it, but it was still a huge lesson. It's definitely taught me to slow down, calm down, breathe, regulate, you know, sit in the uncomfortable positions and breathe and open up into tension. Open tension, like the tension that exists, to open up into it. Yeah, so like yoga and meditation was the first one, or the first two. And then I started to get into the more, let's say sexual, spiritual, shamanic type realms of the work. And so I learned how to emotionally regulate. I learned how to process my emotions, which was a huge one. You know, I learned that, because one thing I didn't like about yoga or meditation is like it really cuts off the lower chakras. If everyone knows what the chakras are, you know, we have 7, the heart's the center, we have 3 above, 3 below. The lower chakras are about embodiment. They're more real world driven, you know, survival mode, emotion, sexuality, and like the willpower.
They're like
the upper chakra.
Yeah,
exactly. It's your grounded nature, you know. Your upper chakras are more about expression, vision, and purpose. And so a lot of yoga and meditation, they really kind of just cut the bottom half off and they just focus on ascension. And so when I did the shamanism and the sexuality stuff, it really brought me down into my body on a whole nother level. And so rather than go, oh, I'm angry, let me observe this anger and where does it come from? It was like, no, fuck that. Let's just go and express the anger in a really healthy way, not dump my anger on the person that I'm angry at, but just me and go and actually release it, rage, yell, punch, scream, fuck, whatever. And then once I've kind of worn myself out on the other side, I'm no longer holding on to it. And then I can observe where it came from. And then I can, you know, and actually for me, that was the faster path. You know, the faster path was to let the emotion out: jealousy, rage, anger, grief, sadness, joy, bliss, ecstasy, whatever it was, that it was to embody the emotion. And then on the other side of that was this more liberated, like, oh, I'm no longer attached to that feeling, whether it was good or bad. I had the experience. And now on the other side of that is kind of, I guess, empathy or sympathy for, you know, for myself, and love for that part of myself, rather than shaming myself for having an emotion.
Well, that's that self-forgiveness, isn't it? I mean, that's self-love right at its core, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like the idea to love every part of yourself, you know, even the dark, twisted, dirty, weird parts, you know. And so, yeah, so the first one was yoga meditation. The second one was emotional regulation. And then the last one was just like actually to really learn how to channel and cultivate my own sexual current. you know, and to not for no one else to be responsible for that, for me to be my own fucking juicy, powerful, like sex god for myself, you know, like I don't need anyone around me to be erotically charged.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because it takes me back to, and I don't even know how our paths crossed, but I remember being in a situation myself. And this is probably the stuff that you don't hear, Tyran, is, you know, what your listeners and your followers go through, which somehow, you know, the universe and its amazing ways cross paths. And I remember dropping onto your page, and this one video jumped out at me, and it was about like, fucking keep yourself happy. It's no one else's job to satisfy you. And, you know, I was in a relationship at the time where, you know, not only was it severely violent, but it was severely controlling, in that sense that it was my fucking job to keep this person happy. And it was my job to satisfy them. And it was my job I always had to be happy, because if I wasn't, you know, it was my fault that they were sad. And my God, I don't think you'll ever realize the impact of just that. I think it was like a 3-minute rant that you went on, and you were so direct about it. And honestly, the penny dropped for me, and I just went, oh fuck, like I knew that it wasn't right. But your message that day gave me permission, I guess, while I was in a vulnerable state, it gave me permission to go, fuck, I knew that this wasn't normal. You know, I knew that this wasn't healthy. So I love that. And thank you, because, you know, like you said, there's so many little messages along the way. And that video for me was just another message, you know, and I ended up getting out of a severely, you know, shitty situation, because, you know, those little feathers, bricks and Mack trucks came in thick and fast.
Yeah.
I think there was a time where the Mack truck was like just driving and reversing.
Yeah, definitely had that.
So look, in you finding yourself, you found your business. You know, you've been able to coach and, you know, impact many people you didn't even know you impacted. What was the scariest part about the business side for you? Because I know, like you said, there's a lot of diving into the emotional and, you know, really doing the head miles, let's call it. But what about the business side of it? Is there a side to business that scares the absolute shit out of you?
Yes. Firstly, I just want to say thanks. I'm glad that video helped you, you know, like it's beautiful to hear. And sometimes, yeah, I do forget that, you know, like I forget that even it's not about how many views a video gets. Sometimes it's just that one video that just helped that one person. So I thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, yes, absolutely. I mean, the whole idea of business scares me, right? Like I grew up in a very regular household. Like my mum owns her own hair salon, but she's the only one that works there, right? So it's not like she has multiple people that work for her, and she doesn't do internet promoting. It's the only salon in a tiny town. They have to go there because no one else can go. Like there's no other option. So, you know, like, yeah. And my dad has always traded his time for money, you know, and I was a bricklayer, and I know how to build bricks and mortar. I know how to work really hard, and I know how to work overtime, and I know how to bust my ass, and I know how to get paid for that. You know, and I know how to have a dream and a vision for something and work to get there in the physical sense.
Sure.
But everything I've ever done is in the planetary physical realm. It's like I build a house, I walk up, there's a concrete slab, I leave, there's the whole house there. You know, like there is a physical representation of the energy you put in. The biggest challenge for me when I started to work online was charging money for what I perceive to be not valuable stuff. You know, like I'm like, oh, people are going to pay me more money an hour than I got when I like worked physically demanding shit job just to talk to them and teach them what I learned, or share with them knowledge that I have, or give them an insight to themselves that in my mind, after doing years and years of that work, became really easy. But for these guys and girls was like profound, you know, and that was probably the biggest, and still is the biggest challenge for me, to be like, I earn more money a year now, working online, running programs than I have ever before. Even when I was working as a bricklayer and growing marijuana illegally, like I'm earning more money a year now, helping people, making them feel better about themselves and giving them more profound lives and working less, like, running group programs, I help 30, 40 people at a time, and it's like, and that's been the biggest thing for me to get my head around, like value and time and money and worth, like what I'm worth.
Yeah, your net worth, aligning your net worth and your self-worth, I think, and I've been through something similar, is how is it that when I said no to all the things that I didn't want to do, right? Because I always said yes before, because you're the people pleaser, or you don't want to upset anyone. So I've said no to more things ever now, and I get paid more than ever now. Like how it's not the way that we're programmed, right? So how did you, was there anything that sort of happened that made you, made that transition easier when it came to aligning the net worth and self-worth? Because I know for me, it was the actual moment that I charged that amount that I shit my pants about 6 months prior and went, no one's going to pay it. No one's going to pay it. That's crazy money, to obviously, being in a space now where I go, like, it's worth it. I know what I deliver is worth it. So what was that for you?
The short answer is no. I still have it every time, like it's still a process. I am, and I am moving through stuff. I guess there were different moments, like, there's constantly different moments. Like the first time that someone paid me to start a monthly coaching thing, like I would do calls and one-off sessions, and someone's like, oh, I want to work with you for 3 months. I was like, oh, sure, that's $500 a month. And they were like, okay. I was like, yeah, cool, all right, no worries, sure, no worries, let me send an invoice. So the first time was when someone was happy to pay a regular monthly thing. The next time was when I started to I ran a group program, and I had 7 guys sign up. It was $2,000 a pop for 8 weeks. And that was, and I signed up 6 guys in 6 days and made, $12,000 in a week. And I was just like,
whoa,
that's a month, more than a month's income for me working bucket. Yeah. I still had to work for the 8 weeks to give them the thing, but that was a big moment. And then I think the next big moment was when I ran my 4-month mentorship, and I basically earned like 50 grand in a month. It was $3,000 a pop, and I had 25 men in it. And within a month I signed up lots of men, and quite like 7 of them paid cash up front. So I made like 50 grand sales and 21 grand cash in a month. And I was just like, whoa. And that was all just because they wanted to, and this is really humbling and also challenging, is like they wanted to be more like me, and it was like, and that's what they said, how you're presenting yourself, that's what I want to have that for myself, obviously, like for them, their version of it. But to think that me just being me and talking about the things I talk about and embodying the things that I feel good about and is inspiring people, and that was like this big click,
That's true purpose. When your purpose aligns with your passion and you can find a way to monetize it, like, to me, that bit there, that's the success. That is, it's a fucking game changer. There's no other way to put it, right?
No. And so, like, I just ran my mentorship again for the second time, and it was easier than the first time. And the guys that came through this one had more profound changes and backing the whole enterprise more. And actually, like, since the last mentorship to now, it's like, oh, these guys are like, I want to do this work. How can I do this work? So now I'm going to be teaching men how to do my job, so I don't have to do my job. So then, and they're going to teach my trainings for me, and I'll pay them. So now it's turning into a company and a business.
You're becoming the CEO rather than the bus driver. You're the CEO, and that's such a fundamental part of scaling your business as well.
I
love that. I love that. So look, if you were to say to your younger self, you know, one thing, what would it be?
Invest in yourself earlier.
Oh, yes. No.
Like there's so many successful people, and by successful I mean people that have achieved what they wanted to achieve. I don't mean people that have made millions of dollars. I don't mean people that have run a world record. I mean people that have achieved what they wanted to achieve is success, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And every single one of them says the same thing. And I reflect, like when someone that's 24 rings me up and they're unsure about paying money to, I'm like, dude, if I could pay the money that I'm charging you now at your age to learn what I know, like we all say, hindsight's a beautiful thing. Oh my God, if I'd had the knowledge, well, you can. Like you actually can have the knowledge by people that have done it if you choose to invest in yourself.
So
Fuck, it would have been a game changer.
so true. And I will back that 100%. I mean, shit, I'm 35 and I've only just made, you know, investments in the last, you know, 3 to 6 years in, you know, massive chunks, you know, amounts that I just never would have fathomed I'd spend on personal development. But, you know, the results of that have been absolute game changers in growth, like boundary setting and, you know, like what you will put up with and what you won't. And my business now shines for that. So, Tyran, I can't thank you enough for jumping on. Where can people find you if they want to know about these courses and workshops that you're doing?
So, I mean, I have a website, tyranmowbray.com.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how to use it still. I've still got my VAs kind of teaching me, but it is all on there. Otherwise, Facebook and Instagram, I mean, that's where that's where all the content goes. That's where all the promotion stuff goes. Like, that's where I'm more interactive. I don't have LinkedIn or anything yet. I may, but right now, Facebook, Instagram, you know, I post a couple of times a day. There's always videos, quotes, testimonials, obviously promo stuff, but I mean, just like what you said, you know, you watched a video and the ball dropped for you. So, I mean, just Facebook and Instagram, Tyran.Mowbray on Instagram, Tyran Mowbray on Facebook. There's just content there all the time, you know, and yeah, have a follow, have a read, send me a message. Currently still answering all my own messages. So, you know, maybe in 3 months that'll change. But if you want to talk to me directly, send me a message.
As you build that team, right, you might be able to have someone answering those messages for you. # goals.
Well, that's the idea. Next 3 months is going to be, you know, I'm going to start the facilitator training, and the team's going to grow pretty quickly, I think, from there. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
I can't wait to watch it all unfold. That's so cool. So thank you so much. You know, I know that you're busy. Like you said, you've got workshops and courses and all sorts of things going on. So I really appreciate you taking the time. And I love that we've been able to bring, you know, like a no judgment, all round kind of chat, you know, when it comes to what it looks like to find yourself, because it's not just about finding yourself and, you know, creating a booming business from there. There's so many crazy parts that you have to go through in order to become that person, to have that success, right? So I really thank you for that.
Thanks, Melanie. I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, you know, people, when I go home, people ask me like, man, you know, I'm just like, dude, if I told you everything that I've done in the last 5 years, your head would explode, you know, like it's not a thing that you can transmit in 30 minutes, you know, or even 10 minutes.
It's not for the faint hearted either. You know, like if you're not ready to go all in and you're not ready to drop the bullshit excuses, you know, and you may be a little bit iffy about committing when it comes to growth in any form, whether it's personal, business, whatever. Like if you're not ready to commit, like it's not your time yet. You know, it's
no, exactly. You know, yeah, you know, I mean, yeah, exactly. And we get it. You know, we would get it every time you talk to someone and they, oh, I'm not sure, and it's like, okay, well, look, I don't want to work with someone that's not sure, basically. So,
yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're out in this moment, but like, what is the resistance? You know, like, do you want what you want or do you not want what you want? Because if you don't want what you actually want, then go and keep doing the life you're doing. But if you actually want to take that step, and it's hard when you awaken things, there's no turning back. Once you know shit, you can't unknow it. And that's the scary part.
Yes, I remember opening the can of worms, and it was at a seminar, and the seminar started with, you know, like money mindset type stuff. And I remember thinking, fuck, like I'm not even interested. Like I don't even have $20, like I was so broke then. And I just thought, like, why? I don't even care about any of this. But, it was the program that they offered at the end where it was, well, you know what, if you don't know about it, let us teach you how to become, successful in your business, successful in your money and your mindset. And I just went, oh, well, this makes sense, and I dropped $20,000 that day that I didn't have. I just found it. And I know, but you know what, that course and that program for the last 6.5 years has been the gift that keeps on giving. So do I worry about that money now? Not in the slightest. It was an absolute game changer. So I totally back you on what you said, with this being invest in yourself. Definitely. So thank you again. Absolutely appreciate what you're doing. Love everything that you're about. And hopefully we will be able to watch everything unfold for you in the coming months.
Thanks, Melanie. Appreciate it. Been great.